In a somewhat surprising move, the Nashville Predators have fired head coach Peter Laviolette. We're going to take a look at what this means for the team and who's going to be the next head coach. We'll discuss that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have some breaking news from the NHL. The Nashville Predators have announced earlier this evening that head coach Peter Laviolette has been relieved of his duties, as well as associate coach Kevin McCarthy. Now, this is a rather unusual move for GM David Poile. He's not the type of GM who likes to fire coaches mid-season. Of course, the Predators have been an NHL franchise for quite some time, and Laviolette is only their second coach. I mean, Barry Trotz was their head coach for a long time before he was let go. David Poile's been a GM in the league for, I believe it's 37 years, and he's only ever worked with a handful of coaches because this is not his style. He usually makes lots of trades, shakes up his roster, but apparently he feels this is the direction he needs to go in. David Poile has made a lot of moves to make this team better and stronger over the last couple of seasons, and the results are just not coming. Really, ever since they went on a run to the Stanley Cup final a few years ago, which was a little bit of a Cinderella run. They get into the playoffs as a low-ranked wildcard seed and went all the way to the finals. They've been a really strong team ever since, but they haven't been able to get over that hump and get back to the finals. And I think it's fair to say that as a team, they've been regressing, at least with results, even though Poile has made several moves that at least make them look like a stronger team on paper. Laviolette had a fairly successful run with the Predators over 5.5 seasons with a record of .248, .143, and .60. That gives them a winning percentage of .616 over 5.5 years, which is really pretty successful. You don't see too many coaches with that kind of record being let go, but over time, coaches' expiry dates, as they say, do expire here, and over time you need a new voice, a new direction to shake things up. It's certainly a much easier move than making a bunch of trades. Trades can be difficult in the salary cap world, and given the roster that he has and some of the contracts that he probably would like to move, has certainly been challenging for sure. But the Predators have regressed further this year as the recording of this video, as the firing of the head coach. They're not in a playoff spot, so there's really no way that they're going to be able to have a shot at getting back to where they were a few years ago if they can't even get into the playoffs. Now, we talked about the possibility of Laviolette being on the hot seat and being fired in a video from earlier today that was posted first thing this morning on the channel, and many comments kind of indicated that they didn't think Laviolette was the problem with the Predators and that he likely wouldn't be let go, but there had been some rumblings. It was as reported here from Elliot Friedman on the weekend that some thought maybe he would be on the hot seat, but it wasn't not even a full week ago that David Poile himself said he was not considering a coaching change at this time. But of course, things can change, and they can change quickly in the NHL. And the other thing I always caution everybody here to keep in mind is that NHL GMs are not going to come out through interviews and announce to the public what they're planning to do before they do it. It's not something that you're going to see. So clearly Poile had been thinking about it, toying with the idea, and obviously felt like he had no choice. This goes against the grain, like I said, of how he's acted as a GM for several decades here. So clearly this was a tough decision for David Poile. Now, of course, over the years, the Predators have typically been known as a pretty strong defensive team, and for the most part, they still have a pretty solid looking blue line, but this year they're not getting the goaltending to go with that. Both their goaltenders, and Rinne and Saros, have sub 900 save percentages, and that to me is the biggest issue on the team. They do have some underperforming forwards. They don't have some of their guys kind of kicking in real high offensive outputs, but they do have a pretty well-balanced team, and they are a higher scoring team than they typically have been in the past as well. They are tied for 7th in the NHL for goals for, but they're all the way down to 21st for goals against. And if you look at the save percentage, they'd be down even lower. So clearly there is some issues with this roster, but maybe he feels a new voice, new head coach can kind of get things going. But I guess they can't really help the goalie stop the puck. I'm not really sure a head coach is really going to have a whole lot of influence one way or another when it comes to that. Maybe they'll bring in a new goaltending coach as well and try to shake things up and find some flaws in their game and get some new things to work on for them, perhaps. I don't know, but Pekka Rinne's been around for a long time, a very experienced goaltender. I would imagine by this point he can kind of figure out on his own what needs to change here for his game, but clearly a new voice, new direction, certainly can't hurt, I suppose, in Nashville. Now, Laviolette's had a pretty successful coaching career in the NHL. Of course, prior to coaching the Predators, he also had a long run with the Philadelphia Flyers, a pretty solid run with the Carolina Hurricanes, as well as a short stint with the New York Islanders. So he's got lots of experience. I would not be surprised to see him resurface in the NHL again at some point here. Now, the only part about this whole coach firing issue that kind of makes it a little bit odd is that there was no announcement as to who is going to be taking over as the next head coach of the Nashville Predators. Normally, when you see a head coach let go, you have an announcement as to who is taking over. Now, the Predators play tomorrow evening, so it's led to believe here that they will make an announcement, whether it be later this evening or sometime early tomorrow, as to who the new head coach is going to be. My gut feeling says that they're still working on a contract negotiation with whoever they really want to hire, and that part has not been finalized, so they can't make an announcement. I would assume, and I think it's pretty safe to assume here, that if they were going to be hiring internally, that would have been an easier transition, and that announcement would have been made pretty much right at the same time. A couple of guys like a Peter DeBoer or John Hines would be great fits there. They're certainly great coaches with a great resume, and I do think they could possibly help out the Predators and bring a fresh new look and a fresh voice in the room to try to get things going there. So would not be surprised, but of course I can't say for sure if they're negotiating with one of those experienced coaches to possibly take over. They just can't make the announcement yet due to the contract and everything not being finalized. So of course, as always, want to know your thoughts on the Predators firing Laviolette. Was this the right move? Will David Poile follow this up with some trades to shake up the roster? And let me know what your predictions are and who is going to be the next head coach. Am I going down the right path here, assuming that it very well could be a guy like a John Hines or a Peter DeBoer, or do you think it's somebody different? Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. I'm curious to see what everybody's thinking on who will be the new head coach of the Nashville Predators. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and we'll continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.